Okay, seriously, I need a reality check here, because I genuinely don't know if I'm the villain or if my husband is some kind of sociopath. You tell me if a normal, loving husband would react this way. My husband, Rowan, is what you'd call a good man. On paper, he's a catch. He's the kind of guy your mother prays you'll end up with. He's a senior data analyst, makes great money, remembers every important date, knows I prefer oat milk lattes with exactly 1.5 pumps of vanilla, and even reorganizes our pantry by nutritional content and expiration date. Our life is a fortress of stability, it's secure. And it is so mind-numbingly, soul-crushingly boring I could scream. His entire existence runs on a pre-programmed schedule. A typical evening involves him reading a dense book on economic theory while I scroll through Instagram, the only sound being the hum of the air purifier. Spontaneity to Rowan is deciding to watch a documentary on a Tuesday night instead of the scheduled Wednesday. Meanwhile, my friends' lives are a constant, glittering drama series. My best friend Lisa is dating an artist who once got into a fist fight because another guy looked at her for too long. Toxic? Probably, but it's a story, it's passion. When we all get together for brunch, they're swapping tales of jealous fights and passionate makeup sex. And what do I have to contribute? Oh, Rowan just created a pivot table to track our monthly spending and discovered we can save 8 on utilities if we unplug the toaster after use. I can literally see the pity in their eyes, the quick, polite smiles before they change the subject. I started to feel less like a wife and more like a well-managed asset in his portfolio of life. I felt invisible, boring by association. I just wanted him to feel something. To fight for me, to show even a flicker of the jealousy that proved I was more than just a variable in his perfect, ordered equation. I just wanted a story of my own. The final straw was a Sunday brunch a few weeks ago. Lisa was holding court, dramatically recounting how her artist boyfriend had found an old message on her phone from a male colleague and had spent the entire night demanding to know every detail, culminating in a tearful, passionate reconciliation at 4 a.m. It was exhausting, she said, fanning herself with a menu while practically glowing, but at least I know he cares, you know, that he's afraid to lose me. Everyone at the table nodded in profound understanding. Then inevitably, all eyes turned to me. How was your week, Kara? Someone asked with that bright, polite tone reserved for the boring friend. I felt a hot flush of shame. Oh, you know. Quiet, I mumbled, forcing a smile. Rowan alphabetized his collection of nonfiction paperbacks. The silence that followed was so thick I could have choked on it. That evening, the quiet in our apartment felt hostile. Rowan was at his desk, perfectly content, transferring his handwritten notes on market trends into yet another spreadsheet. He didn't even notice the storm brewing inside me. I decided then and there that I couldn't live in that quiet anymore. I had to manufacture some noise, to drop a bomb into the placid waters of our life just to see a ripple. The plan came to me while scrolling through Instagram, the very stage where my friends performed their lives. A high-end gym, the kind with a juice bar and a DJ, had just opened downtown. It was a scene, and the trainers, they were practically models. My target was a guy named Leo. He had that effortlessly charming vibe, all bright teeth and sculpted muscles, the complete antithesis of Rowan's quiet, intellectual presence. He was the perfect character for my little drama. You have to understand, my plan wasn't malicious. Not really, I just wanted to nudge Rowan. To poke the bear and see if there was actually a bear in there, I booked a package of sessions with Leo. The first photo I posted was innocent enough. A selfie of me looking sweaty and accomplished, captioned, "First day back on the grind, feeling the burn." I tagged the gym and Leo. My phone lit up instantly. "Get it, girl," Lisa wrote with a string of fire emojis. The next week I escalated. I asked Leo to check my form on the squat rack, propping my phone up against a water bottle to record myself. I knew exactly what I was doing. When his hands settled on my hips to adjust my posture, I held the position for a beat too long. Later that night, I screen grabbed the most suggestive frame and posted it. The caption was a masterpiece of plausible deniability, learning from the best. At Leo, the trainer really knows how to push my limits. The likes and comments doubled. I felt a dizzying thrill, a sense of power I hadn't felt in years. I was finally creating my own story, one that people were interested in. I was the director. All I needed was for my leading man, my husband, to finally pay attention to the script. I started living for the performance. The gym became my stage, my phone the camera, and Instagram my audience. The posts got progressively bolder, each one a calculated escalation. A picture of Leo and me laughing, heads close together over a post-workout smoothie, captioned, "Somehow he makes even cardio fun." Then a boomerang of him spotting me on the bench press, his face inches from mine, my caption a cheeky. Feeling the pressure in all the right ways, winking face. My friends were eating it up, their comments and DMs fueling my fantasy. Lisa would text me things like, OMG, has Rowan seen this? Is he freaking out? And I'd reply with a coy, he hasn't said anything yet. The anticipation was intoxicating, a drug. I was no longer just Kara, the data analyst's quiet wife. I was the main character in a thrilling, unfolding drama. Every evening was a silent, one-sided war. I'd watch Rowan, waiting for the explosion. I'd leave my phone on the coffee table, screen up, the picture of Leo's hand casually resting on the small of my back clearly visible. Nothing. He would glance at it, maybe, his expression unreadable, then go back to reading his book on behavioral economics. His only reaction was a quiet, infuriating consistency. He would like every single post. Not a comment, not a message, just a single, sterile tap of the heart icon. It felt less like a sign of support and more like he was logging a data point. Wife's social media activity noted. It was maddening. It was like throwing rocks at a brick wall and having the wall politely thank you for the stones. My final act, the showstopper, was meticulously planned. I bought a new, ridiculously expensive workout outfit that was more fashion than function. It was all straps and mesh, designed to be looked at. After a particularly grueling session with Leo, my hair damp and my skin flushed, I staged the perfect photo. I stood with my back to the wall of mirrors, phone in hand as if taking a selfie, while he stood behind me supposedly critiquing my form. I angled the shot so it looked like he was embracing me, his muscular arms framing my body, our eyes meeting in the reflection. It was the perfect illusion of intimacy. I spent nearly an hour crafting the caption, agonizing over every word. I finally landed on, so grateful for a partner who pushes me to be my best self. It's all about finding someone who shares your passion. The word partner was deliberate. It was a landmine, and I was gleefully waiting for him to step on it. I posted it, my heart hammering against my ribs. This had to be it. I didn't have to wait long. A few hours later, as Rowan was packing his briefcase for the next day, a notification popped up on my phone. A message from him, my breath caught in my throat, finally. The confrontation. I opened it, my mind racing with prepared responses for his anger, his questions, his jealousy. Instead, it was a screenshot. A receipt from the gym. The message below it read, Hey, I saw how much you're enjoying the new gym. You seem so happy and motivated, so I went ahead and paid for your membership for the next 3 years. It's great that you've found a friend who's as passionate about fitness as you are. For a full minute, I just stared at the screen. 3 years. It wasn't a gift, it was a dismissal. It was the most passive-aggressive, condescending power move I had ever seen. He wasn't jealous, he wasn't even angry. He was placating me, treating me like a child whose little hobby he was graciously funding. The rage that had been simmering for weeks boiled over. I stormed into the study where he was meticulously polishing his leather shoes for the next day. I shoved my phone in his face. What is this? I demanded, my voice shaking. You think this is funny? He didn't even look up from his task, just continued making small, perfect circles with the cloth. It's a gym membership, Kara. I thought you'd be pleased. Pleased, Rowan, look at me. I yelled, finally grabbing the shoe from his hand and throwing it on the floor. Have you even seen my posts? Do you have any idea what this looks like? He finally straightened up and looked at me. His eyes weren't angry or hurt, they were just tired. Calmly, he picked up the shoe and placed it back in its box. Yes, I've seen them, he said, his voice unnervingly level. And I have to ask you honestly, did you get what you wanted from them? Did your friends think it was exciting enough? The question hit me like a physical blow. He knew. He knew the whole thing was a performance. My carefully constructed drama was just a pathetic, transparent play to him. The humiliation was so intense it felt like I was burning from the inside out. My anger curdled into a desperate need to wound him, to make him feel even a fraction of what I was feeling. Yes, I spat, the lie tasting like acid in my mouth. Yes, they did, and you know what? It was exciting. Leo is exciting, he's passionate, he makes me feel alive. At least that's more interesting than our dead, boring life. I expected him to shout, to argue, to finally break. Instead, a profound stillness came over him. He looked at me, really looked at me for a long, silent moment. The tiredness in his eyes was replaced by something else, something I couldn't read. It was a look of finality, like a judge passing a sentence. He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Okay, he said, his voice soft but clear. I understand. He then turned, walked to his closet, and started packing a small overnight bag. I stood there frozen, thinking this was just another part of his silent treatment. I thought he was just going to his parents for the night to let me cool off. I thought I had finally won. I woke up the next morning expecting an apology text, or at least a sullen, one-word message. Instead, there was a profound silence that felt heavier than any argument. The apartment was unnervingly still. Rowan's side of the bed was cold and perfectly made, the way he always left it. But his laptop wasn't on the desk, his briefcase wasn't by the door, and his favorite running shoes were gone from the rack. A knot of genuine unease began to tighten in my stomach. I told myself he was just being dramatic, dragging out his silent treatment to punish me. Fine, I muttered to the empty room, my voice sounding small and hollow. Two can play at that game. Around 10 a.m., my phone buzzed with an email notification. The sender was a name I didn't recognize, attached to a prestigious-looking law firm. The subject line read, Divorce Agreement, Rowan Thorne and Kara Thorne. My world tilted on its axis. I thought it was a joke, a sick prank. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone as I clicked it open. It was no joke. It was a formal, brutally efficient document, pages and pages of legal jargon that all screamed one thing. It's over, petition for dissolution of marriage, proposed division of assets, spousal support clauses, everything was laid out in cold, black and white terms. My breath hitched when I saw the section on our finances. Our joint savings account, the one Rowan meticulously managed and I freely spent from, had been frozen. The funds, the document stated, were legally transferred into a neutral escrow account pending the final settlement. On a whim of pure panic, I scrambled to open my banking app. I tried to buy a coffee through an app, a $5 transaction. Declined. My credit card, a supplementary card from his primary account that I used for everything from groceries to my designer gym wear, was inactive. My heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. This had to be a nightmare, a cruel, elaborate bluff designed to scare me. Rowan was methodical, yes, but he wasn't this. Decisive, he wasn't this. Ruthless, as if on cue my phone rang, and for a wild second I thought it was him, but the caller ID showed building management. It was Frank, our usually cheerful building manager. His voice, however, was stripped of all its usual warmth. It was flat and formal. Good morning, Miss Thorne. This is just a courtesy call to confirm that we have processed Mr. Thorne's request to terminate the lease on apartment 7 billion. As per the co-tenancy agreement, you will have 30 days from the date of his notice, which was submitted last week, to vacate the premises. The phone slipped from my grasp and clattered onto the floor. Last week, the words echoed in the silent apartment, mocking me. He had filed the notice to end our lease last week, before our fight, before my final, dramatic Instagram post. This wasn't a spontaneous, angry reaction to my outburst. This was the final, quiet step in a long-decided plan. He hadn't just left me. In the space of a single, silent morning, Rowan had systematically, legally, and completely dismantled the entire scaffolding of the life I had so carelessly called boring. The foundation he had built was gone, and I was in absolute freefall. My first call was to Lisa. I was hysterical, sobbing so hard I could barely form words. He's leaving me. He cut off my cards, he's kicking me out of the apartment, he sent a lawyer's email. I expected outrage on my behalf, a tirade against Rowan's cruelty, a promise to come over immediately with wine and ice cream. Instead, there was a long, awkward pause on the other end of the line. Oh my God, Kara, she finally said, her voice sounding distant and strained. I thought you were just trying to get a reaction out of him, you know? Just having a bit of fun. He's really doing all that? That's intense. There was no comfort in her words, only a palpable desire to back away from the mess I had created. Listen, I'm in the middle of something right now, can I call you back? She never did. My other friends reacted similarly. Texts went unanswered. Calls went to voicemail. The same people who had eagerly cheered on my drama from the sidelines now treated me like I was radioactive. Their awkward distancing was a colder slap in the face than any direct confrontation. I was a fun bit of gossip when I was poking my boring husband, but now that the consequences were real and messy, nobody wanted to be near the wreckage. Days bled into a week of pure desperation. I spent hours trying to get into Rowan's old laptop, which he'd left behind. Most of his files were work-related or boringly domestic. But then I found it, a folder on the desktop innocently named Project Nightingale. My heart skipped a beat. Inside wasn't evidence of an affair or a secret life, it was our future. Or rather, the future he had been planning. There were architectural blueprints for a house in the suburbs, with a space marked Kara's art studio. There were brochures for the best school districts in the area. There was a detailed savings plan, tracking his progress for a down payment, and tucked inside a subfolder was a document that shattered what was left of my heart. It was an itinerary for a surprise trip to Tuscany for our upcoming 5th anniversary. He had been meticulously planning it for over a year, with notes on my favorite foods and wineries. The last time the file had been modified was the day after I posted my first picture with Leo. Somehow, I found a tiny studio apartment on the other side of town. It's the kind of place with a kitchen that's really just a hot plate and a mini fridge humming ominously in the corner. The walls are paper thin, and I can hear my neighbors' arguments as if they were in the room with me. It's a world away from the sun-drenched, spacious apartment Rowan had kept immaculate. I'm living off the last of my personal savings, watching my bank account dwindle with every sad, microwavable dinner. Last night I was on the phone with Lisa. She finally called back, her voice dripping with a kind of cautious pity. I put on a brave face. It's the only thing I have left, honestly. It's for the best, I said, forcing a laugh that sounded brittle even to my own ears. I feel so free, the world is my oyster now. The next guy I date is going to be an adventure, I can promise you that. No more spreadsheets, no more boring nights in, I'm finally going to live. That's the spirit, she said, sounding relieved that she didn't have to deal with my tears. We hung up and the silence of my tiny apartment crashed down on me. I dropped the cheerful facade, my face crumbling in the quiet. I opened my wallet and pulled out the one thing Rowan had left me, the one thing the lawyers couldn't touch. It was the gym membership card, glossy and black. I stared at the sleek logo, the bold white letters spelling out the name of the place where I had so happily torched my own life. 3 years, paid in full. He'd given me exactly what I thought I wanted, a story, a drama, a life without him. And as I sat there, tracing the sharp edges of the plastic with my thumb, I finally understood. He hadn't just paid for a gym membership. He had paid for my exit. And as the full weight of that realization hit me, I buried my face in my hands and sobbed, a silent, racking grief for the beautiful, boring life I had so stupidly destroyed.